If you haven't watched my MLS Fantasy 101 series, be sure to go watch parts 1 and 2, where I give an overview of the game and how to set your lineup. In today's video, I'll outline what I do every week to prepare for and play the MLS Fantasy Game. Step 1. Set your team. First thing I do is review the matchups for the week. So all you have to do is scroll down and see, when the games are. This is obviously from last season, so the game's already completed. But they'll outline, the different dates of each game and the time. So I'll review matchups for the week, see who has the best odds, who's home, what games look really good from a fantasy perspective. And then based on those matchups, I'll add my locks for the week. So looking at these, for example, LAFC against San Jose looks great. So one of my locks would most obviously be probably like someone Buanga, and then in the midfield, someone like a Bogusz. So I'll pull in Bogusz here and add him there. So those are some examples of the locks that I would set for the week. And then I would look at like my different switcheroos and auto-roos. What's my tactics going to look like? So I had my locks set for the week. Looks like I actually didn't go with Buanga last year. But yeah, so based on that, I'll then set the rest of my lineup and see, am I doing a switcheroo or an auto-roo? Looks like last year I ended with an auto-roo. I had two scrubs in right here. Also, you just want to keep in mind, where are we at in the season? So in the early game, most likely I would be picking players that I know would be, a strong pick, but also those that might give me some more team value. So if you haven't watched that video, go be sure to give that a watch around how to build your team value in the early game. But yeah, this example here, it was a late game. Last game of the season, so I really didn't care too much about building my team value. I had flexibility in, how my team would look. So yeah, just to recap on step 1 around setting your team. So you want to review those matchups for the week, who has the best odds, who's home. Then you want to add, at least this is what I do, I add my locks for the week, and then I pick my strategy, switcheroo, auto-roo, what am I looking at, and I fill in the rest of my team. Also, like I said, keep in mind where we're at in the season. Am I building my team value, or is it near the end, and I don't really care about that too much. Step 1 is complete. You have your first draft. Step 2, I would just recommend to go and watch some MLS fantasy content creators. Like myself, shameless plug for my weekly player picks and tiers videos. Watch those every week to see what others are thinking and anything you may have missed. For example, call-ups for international duty, injuries, suspensions. There is a lot to keep up with in the MLS fantasy season. I also want to give a shout out to some other creators like the Dropping Points podcast. Go be sure to check them out. They have a lot of great content on their Twitter, as well as I think I listen to them on Spotify, but go check them out. And of course, the OG MLS Fantasy Boss. Go give those guys, Reed and the crew, a watch. They have some great insights from some of the best fantasy players in the game. All right, so you set your draft and you saw what some others were thinking about the MLS Fantasy Week. Step 3, I would recommend you come back in and tweak your team as needed. Maybe you like some insight that they had on a matchup, or you realize that one of the players you had originally starting is injured or suspended. So come back in and make some changes to your team so you're all set for the game week. And step 4, wait. Anxiously wait for the first round of games to start. But seriously, I know sometimes it can be a few days. You set your team up, you listen to everybody, and you still have to wait a few days for the games to start. I do upload my team reveals each week, I think a day or two before the actual games start, just to get some more insight before the official games begin. But yeah, all you can do is wait. So you did your draft, you listened to some fantasy content to get some insights, you came back, you made your changes. Surely you're set for the week. Unfortunately, you're not. But this is also where MLS Fantasy keeps things exciting and a part of the game that I do like. So step 5 is all about confirming your players are playing / rolling lineup locks. So as you can see in the last round of the MLS season last year, looks like we had games on a Saturday, a Sunday, so it looked like a double game week. So for this game on the 19th, your Montreal games early, Chicago, Miami, these are all East Coast, but then you start to get to Austin and LAFC, these are your later games. So here, this is where the rolling lineup lock comes into play. So what I normally do, I honestly just set a reminder on my phone. Games last year started around 7:30, so around say 6:45 I would go in and I would actually check if I say, for example, I had anyone playing in Montreal or New York City. I would go and check their Twitter to see if the players that I have in my lineup actually match to what the team is actually lining up on the field. So for example, we've got the Union here pulled up. You want to check their official lineup pushes. I usually just check their Twitter. You've got the starting 11 as well as who is on the bench. You want to keep that in mind as well. So say you've got some scrubs on your fantasy team. Sometimes the team will actually have them on the field and then sub them in, and it'll completely ruin your switcheroo or auto-roo. So this is very important. Don't only check who's starting, check the bench to make sure who you want on your team is also playing or not playing in the actual fantasy game. So yeah, as I said, you thought you could have the perfect team set up. You've got Evander starting, and then it comes to the actual game time. You go and check Twitter, and he's actually not playing at all, and your plan is ruined. So this is one of the most important things about MLS Fantasy. If you want to, stay on top of your team, stay competitive, I highly recommend setting a reminder, checking your team, and making sure they're up to date and all your players are playing. Or if you don't want them to play, make sure they're not in the starting 11 or on the bench. You basically completed a successful week of MLS Fantasy. You set your draft, you watched some content, made your updates, and then most importantly, you kept up with those rolling lineup updates and you made sure all of your players were playing or not playing to support your switcheroos and auto-roos. I would say step back, relish your amazing score for the week as you set yourself up for success and enjoy the beautiful game that is MLS Fantasy. So let me know of anything else that you do during the week to help get the best score, but that wraps it up for me.